Hello, lovely people. Welcome to the August edition of the ERP User Group, brought to you by the lovely Julia, Paul and myself. Mizelle, as many of you probably also are, is on holiday at the moment. So she is currently facing a plane thinking, oh my God, I have to come back to England and start working again. But we will power on without her lovely input to bring you today's awesome session. So first off, I'm going to hit off some speaker opportunities because especially for September, you may have seen we had to do a bit of like a Twitter crawl to try and find some people for Business Central because we want to make sure we're representing all of the back office apps. So I'm going to cover off some ideas quickly first before we then jump into our first amazing speaker, Justin, who is going to cover portals with Dual Write, and I'm pretty sure that he's made it highly entertaining. So I have been pre-warned. Before then, we move into electronic reporter. Then at the end, it's just going to be having a chat, talk about what we've discussed, what we think, what we've heard. The reason we chose portals and electronic reporter and tried to scout for people is because they seem to be the things that, to be honest, I don't even know how they properly work, and that are a little bit of mystery. So we're going to have a chat about it before we then move on to the forms, the socials, and what we've got planned for next month. So first off, speaker opportunities. We really need you guys to start telling us what you want, and also volunteering yourself, whether you're a new speaker or not, we don't care. On the top half, you can see requests we've had in, automated testing. This is the, licensing top tips. I've done this so many times, but I want someone else to volunteer actually. I don't do it anymore. But if it comes down to it, I'll do it. Just shout at me if you feel like you want me to do it, and I'll have to do it because I talk too much of this. Commerce, we've never had a commerce representative. We've got a sneaky plan though of who to come in and bring in for this, but if you want to volunteer, let us know. And environment management, we've actually fixed this one, so this is like a little top tip for what's coming next month. But anything you think that we're missing, anything you want to hear more of, we're going to give you the form to request new topics. Tell us, let us know. The whole point of this is to give you the information that you don't feel like you're hearing about in the community today. We literally go across all the apps: project operations, Business Central, HR, supply chain, finance. If they build a new one, enterprise asset management, we've done, let's rock on. We've done financial insights. Literally, tell us to your heart's content. We are here to facilitate you hearing some awesome topics. So, on that note, we will be introducing Justin, who is taking us through portals. Now, I'm actually quite excited for this. So, over to you, Justin.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah. Wow. That was, you're gotten very quick with your screen transitions, Justin.
Yeah.
Working on it.
I had some jokes lined up and everything.
Oh, yeah. They're dad jokes, hopefully.
Of course they are.
Of course, yeah. I was actually speaking to someone the other day, and I had a couple of dad jokes lined up just based on that session you did, Julia, which was quite funny. I had them saved and I opened them and went through them. But anyway, thank you everyone. Appreciate everyone joining, and thank you for giving me the chance to have a speaking slot as well, Julia, as part of this. So I'm going to go through and give you an overview of Powerapp portals and Dual Write. It's going to be basically a bit of a high level, and I'll run through a bit of a small example of how you can integrate finance and operations records with Powerapp's portals or Dataverse, basically using Dual Write to do that. So, and also just a little bit of a warning, I hope nobody is offended at GIFs because there's quite a few of them throughout. But yeah, so I'm Justin Wilkinson. I'm currently a Power Platform technical consultant at HSO. And it's coming up to nearly about a year, probably just less. My LinkedIn is on the left there, so feel free to add me if you're not connected with me. If there's any questions that you want me to go through or follow up on after the session. Slight bit of a joke that the black and white theme and also my picture being in black and white I took this picture ages ago, and it's a running joke that Chris Huntingford loves it. So he's always called me. He's nicknamed me Moody CRM guy. But yeah, so it's a bit of a joke. So the running theme of this is kind of black and white-ish, give or take. So my background is predominantly coming from a Dynamics 365 and customer engagement, or CRM. Really, I've worked on that, give or take, for the past 10 years or so coming up. So I'm not an F&O consultant. My kind of real first exposure to finance and operations has really been since I've been at HSO. In the past, I have touched other areas, like I've done a tiny bit around Business Central and the integration there, which had similar traits to Dual Write, but it's still completely different. I'm also based in Newcastle, which basically means that by default I do support Newcastle United. I'm not a complete diehard fan; it's more of a chore. But yeah, I guess you have to if you're based around here. I've done 13 plus Microsoft exams. I'm looking to do a couple more as well. I seem to get into a bit of a rampage where I just do as many as I possibly can and then stop and have a break. But those have been across both the Power Platform and first-party applications. And I've done a fair bit of work with Click Dimensions over the last few years. So I've got a couple of their certifications, and it's probably worth noting that there isn't any portal specific exams, but there are several exam questions across multiple exams. So from even the customer service first party apps, there's quite a few around the customer service portal, and even around some of the architect exams, there's quite a lot of questions that can crop up randomly, but there's not a dedicated exam to that. I'm also a bit of a Formula One fan, so it's kind of my passion. I don't have a specific team that I support. I'm just not a huge fan of Lewis Hamilton, that's all. But generally speaking, I do like Formula One. It's been sort of a thing I've followed for such a long time. And on top of that, I'm also a dog father to she's 8 months old, and literally call her a lion because it's literally like lion tame, and she's lovely, but yeah, causes a lot of work, and she's great though. So that's me. Like I said, any questions, feel free to add me on LinkedIn, etc. Happy to try and pick up anything you might have after this session. So what we're going to go through today is an introduction of portals, some of the use cases that I've either experienced or worked with or seen examples of, look through some of the templates, a touch on licensing, how you can enrich portals, highlight some of the concerns around portal security, which is a big area because you're basically potentially exposing internal data to external customers. We're going to also look at some portal downsides, Dual Write as well, and basically what Dual Write is, a tiny brief demo just showing you how you can extend finance and operations using Dual Write, the downsides of Dual Write, and touch base on ALM, and also look at the future of what it, some of it is some of my own ideas, but also some things that I know that are changing as well. So let's kick us off. So starting off, so originally portals themselves, they were a third-party add-in, and they were owned by a company called ADX Studio, and Microsoft purchased ADX Studio roughly about 2015, and then because of that, portals moved directly into the Microsoft stack. They're basically an external website, and the default URL for portal is .powerappsportal.com, and you can set whatever domain you want basically, as long as it's not already registered. But you can also have your own custom domain name if you need to. So whatever your brand, whatever URL that you may own already, or you can purchase one, a custom one for your choice. Now, it can be focused internal users, but one of the key use cases is basically focused around external users, and it's a great way to allow you to expose your internal data to your customers. So you can basically allow customers to log in, manage what information you're holding on them, and they can go in and see all of that. And there's quite a few use cases that we'll run through as well. But generally speaking, most use cases are for external customers, whereas with Canvas apps and model-driven apps, it's very much internal focused users within the same tenant. And they offer a great way to dynamically sort of expose your data to third-party contacts, customers that are in your system. They sit on top of Dataverse, so it's good in the sense that if you have forms or views or anything like that that you've created, you can reuse those if you need to. Now, generally speaking, I do recommend creating portal-specific forms and views, but you do have that ability there, and the data structure is already set up effectively, and you can leverage Dataverse basically to display data to your customers. So we're just going to highlight some use cases that I've seen in the past. The first time I sort of was exposed to a portal was an automotive company, and they actually had ADX Studio come in to set it up. So this was one of the early days customers. And that was all about allowing their members to go in and manage the information that's held and update their portal directory information and all of that sort of thing. So it was a dynamic way to do it. Previously, everything was done manually on a spreadsheet, and they would send the spreadsheet around, and then they would then print a big physical directory based on that. So they basically moved those spreadsheets and this hard copy into an online sort of system, which worked. You also have event booking. Also, Microsoft for Marketing sort of leverages a little bit into that. One of the really good use cases is actually case management, and the customer service hub and the customer service portal really work together quite seamlessly. I think it's actually one of the best use cases of a portal, and the out-of-the-box template again is probably one of the best for that. There's B2B marketing materials and auditing purposes. There's going through and creating your general sales orders, viewing invoices. There's tenant management. So one of the projects I've worked on for quite a while was around allowing tenants to go in, and if they were in a property and they had a bunch of issues or there was something wrong in their apartment, if it was in the kitchen or something like that, they could basically log it as a request, and that helped save their kind of big aftercare and support team a lot of time and sort of streamline the process. Claim processing, which is a recent project that I've worked with around sort of processing claims back and forth between that actually went into finance and operations itself. And then contact and customer management, basically, so allowing your customers to go in, update what information is held against them. There's also HR and management and sort of holiday form applications. I've also seen good examples around that. Education applications, so there's been a few sort of schools I've seen where they'll have you go in and submit all of your certifications and fill out sort of an application form using a portal. And knowledge base as well, which is a really good sort of, you have knowledge articles by default using the customer service hub, and you can leverage those to basically create a sort of a really good knowledge base, and portals are quite good for allowing external customers to do that. So we're just going to briefly highlight some of the templates. Now, to be honest, there's 6 types of portals in total. There is a portal from blank, which isn't on the screen, but that basically is literally a wireframe with a couple of sample pages, but everything has to be built up from scratch. And that's really what a lot of the bigger enterprise projects that I've seen are used. They'll tend to, unless it's certain use cases, they'll tend to create something from blank and go from there. But it does really depend on the use case. We do have the customer self-service portal, which I gave some examples on the screen of what they can help towards. So basically allowing clients or users to go on and log cases, and pick up things when your office is closed. So it's like sort of a 24-hour self-service offer that you can do, and provide the convenience of allowing people to go in and fill out a form online that comes into a queue that can be picked up by the customer support team, which basically can help your support process be streamlined and also be sort of 24/7. Now, to be totally honest, these portal templates, they've not really been, I really do think, apart from, I have played around with a lot of them, and they really do need updating, and I think Microsoft, it's one of the areas that have been neglected, to be totally honest. One of the new big areas is their customer portal, and what I want to actually do is I'll just switch over to show you quickly. So I've spun up this portal, and this is just the out of the box customer portal, which Microsoft said is basically the all singing, all dancing process to get all of your create sales orders, all of that kind of thing. Now, if you spin this up by default and you don't have anyone to go in and support this, or basically design and work with your portal, it doesn't look great from a user experience point of view. So you'll see things like the footers in the middle of the page. You have these nice widgets, and these are actually the nicest thing about this, but they're actually all the same thing. So you have confirmed orders and view orders and delivered orders. There's no difference between that and me going into something like an invoice and having just a list and scrolling through there. And that's literally the best thing of this portal. And then after that, it's some blank templates that aren't even proper templates. There's literally nothing there. And this is kind of some of the concerns that I have. So this is just basically your entity list here. And you also have this fetch unit piece, which is just like, this shouldn't be here, but it is. And it's basically Microsoft have either been doing some fetch XML, and it's just been left in. So you even have a terms and conditions page, which if we just press continue, I can just keep going in and accepting the terms and conditions. It's never actually saved. So to be totally honest, the templates are a big area that I think they need to look at and improve. And I think that it's slightly misleading that they really, from a marketing standpoint, are kind of overestimating this, because there's no way at an enterprise level you could just set this up and go, there you go. There's still a lot that needs to be done around not only the security, but just literally some of the basic functionality that's there out of the box. They are a good way. I mean, I like I said, I think the customer service hub is probably one of the best that I've seen, but just to make you aware of that, I suppose. So that's just highlighting the templates. I'm going to jump into licensing now. Now, this is not, I actually see this as more of a positive. The licensing originally used to be quite expensive. It was, if you signed up for ADX, it was thousands to get it initially set up. It was on a one-to-one basis. It wasn't very much like you could just press a button and it would all be spun up. You had to get them to come out. And it is actually becoming more accessible. The big issue that I've kind of heard that some customers have had is the fact that they don't know. So it's a capacity-based licensing. So you don't know up front if you're going to have 100,000 page views, or if you're going to have 10, or you're going to have 300,000. And certain customers, what they're doing as well is they're saying, well, okay, we have 100,000 contacts on our system. Every one of those is definitely going to log in, and they're going off and basically spending a fortune on licensing that they don't necessarily need. So I think I think the approach is becoming more flexible and a lot more positive. Previously, apart from when ADX had it, Microsoft took it on, and the licensing was around £500 per portal per month. So that included Sandbox as well. So the licensing side is becoming more approachable, and it is positive. But I do think it's just worth being aware of, I suppose, from that side of it. So portals, you can enrich them in quite a few ways. You can use Power BI embedded experience. Just worth noting that there are further costs associated with that. But it's a really good way to have some really nice dashboards embedded within your portal that customers can benefit from. You can, of course, use Microsoft Flow, SharePoint integration. There is also Azure Blob Storage as well for images, so it's beneficial from that side. You also have embedded Power Virtual Agents, so you can embed them easily in a portal, and that works quite nice. That, again, if you're using the customer self-service portal, it really helps to provide that sort of 24-hour support if you have a Power Virtual Agent running as well alongside that. And one of the things that I'm quite excited about, which you'll see at the bottom right here, is Pcf Controls. Now, PCF controls, this is again where I think portals have been neglected. They've been in model-driven apps for quite some time, a few years now, and they basically really improve the look and feel of basic fields. And especially with portals being external, that aspect is really beneficial, because you can put some really nice controls together to make the whole experience of interacting with a portal a lot more user-friendly. And it can also save on development time. So you can just literally put on one of these PCF controls. Now, one of the things I have noticed whilst using PCF controls currently, in preview that is, but not all of them render properly, and there's still some work Microsoft needs to do to look at that. So if you have a potential theme or a company branding, it can actually not render the PCF control currently. So just worth highlighting, but that's quite a positive aspect. Portal security. So there's 4 kind of main aspects that portal security is covered. You have entity permissions, so they're kind of granular rights to tables, so allowing contacts to that you can define who can see what effectively. You have invitations and logins, so your portal can be open to everyone if you want it to be, but you can also hide information behind logins. So you only invited users can be see information, and you can also do further things like block failed sign-in attempts. So if someone signs in after 4 or 5 times, you can lock them out. You have web roles. So this is, again, you assign this to a user. Basically, it's a really good way to define who can do what within the portal. And you can get quite granular with this. And you can define if a contact has, if they're a manager, they can see so much, and if they're an end user, they can only see this amount of information. So you can define it that way. There's also web page access. You also can apply web roles to a web page. So basically, you can easily show certain pages to certain users as well from that side. And I've just highlighted this because you can really quickly as well within the portal management app, just basically disable or enable a user. And you can also do a few more settings around that. But just at a high level, if you're worried about someone logging in, you can do that very quickly. I've also put this link at the bottom just to make you aware that I think there has been some use cases again where that recently that some data has been exposed through Powerapp's portals, and there is a series of things, but obviously this is where the whole setup aspect of the portal is quite important, and the security needs tested and made sure it's rigorous. It's not just like you set up the portal and that's it, everything's fine. You still have to put quite a bit of work into it. So let's just have a look at some of the downsides of portals. Frankly speaking, they've been a bit neglected over the past years, especially in comparison to model-driven apps and Canvas apps. Not huge amounts of work has been done, to be totally honest, by Microsoft since they bought it, since they acquired ADX Studio. I do think that one of the biggest areas they've put in is the Portal Studio, which is trying to become a bit more of a WYSIWYG experience, but it's just not there yet. It does make the ability for sort of a more low-code approach, but it's still not perfect at the minute. There's quite a few legacy aspects still in portals themselves. So portal invitations is a prime example. They run off sort of an old workflow, which does work, but in terms of sort of a look and feel, the email content editor isn't as good as using things like Flow, and there's a few areas that they really need to just revamp it up to sort of streamline that process. You can also have some caching issues which can occur, just worth noting. So if you update a record, sometimes it can take up to 15 minutes. That's you're always going to run into some issues similar to that, but it's worth highlighting. And one of the things that I do find slightly frustrating is with PCF controls, they're coming, which is positive, but they're missing certain basic functionality that has existed in model-driven apps and some of the other applications for a long time. So as an example, business rules. If I want to hide and show a field on a form within a portal, you have to start looking at things like JavaScript, etc., and it just goes on and on. Whereas if you were to do this on a model-driven app, you can just quickly put a business rule on a form and set that up within 5-10 minutes, give or take, as opposed to JavaScript, which it's more of a hassle, and it's more open to potential issues and causing errors long term. So it's also not very user friendly. There's a couple of examples that I've had where if you've put sort of a flip switch on a form before Pcf Controls, the entire portal would just break and it would give you a generic error code that really was not useful. So there are certain aspects, if you run into errors, it's not really intuitive to figure out. It was only that I realized that I'd put this flip switch control on a form, and I was reusing that form, and it was only by chance I just remembered that. Otherwise, I could have been battling on for ages. There's still some basic setup needed, so it isn't just you switch it on and that's it. There's quite a lot of setup that is still required, in my honest opinion. Even things like security, making sure that's right, and it does need to be done properly because you are potentially exposing sensitive data or internal data to external users. And they have also removed a few useful features that I quite enjoyed. Things like web page tracking, login tracking. They are moving towards Azure Application Insights, but there was quite a lot of features that were there that were quite useful, to be totally honest, that they've kind of moved back from. It's not a fully fledged CMS as well, which obviously for a lot of businesses and end users, that's really what they want as well. They want it to be super dynamic. There is other options out there from a pure content management side of things. And again, I actually do see this an area that they're going to improve on. Templates, as I mentioned, they're not great, and they do need a bit of refinement, to be totally honest. They're good for a very quick start, but they're not there for your kind of end big enterprise customer that is going to be using the portal. And then really some simple things like pagination, default styling improvements, etc. I really hope they start to look at some of these aspects a bit better, to be honest. It's a big area that needs improved. So that's portals. We're just going to briefly run through Dual Write. So Dual Write in itself is a way to allow synchronization between finance and operations and Dataverse. Now you've got a few options that is part of Dual Write. So you have initial sync. So initial sync, basically that just allows you to synchronize data from one system or another. So if you have all of your records in Dataverse, you can synchronize them all over to F&O and vice versa. You can set the synchronization process to be bidirectional. So again, Dual Write is basically real time. So if I update something in F&O, it's automatically updated in Dataverse, and then ultimately a portal to an extent. So it's a great way if you update something in finance and operations, it's pretty much real time in the portal. Again, caching aside and various things like that. And then you also have the option to filter it as the mapping, whether it is between finance and operations, so that is the master of the data, or Dataverse to finance and operations. You can basically set which tables are going to be the master, and you can even do it at a field level as well. You can also put on some synchronization filters. So the big benefit of this is basically you may only want to display, you may only want to synchronize data where the status is approved for an invoice or completed or billed, something along those lines. So only those records that meet that criteria. And to be honest, the synchronization filters, from what I've seen, they do work quite well. So there's a lot of good use cases around that. So I'm going to jump in and show you a very brief demo. So from a finance and operations side, you set up Dual Write. There's a combination of setup between both Dataverse and finance and operations. Now, there's a couple of prerequisites that you have to do. So you have to install Dual Write. There's two solutions that you need to install. There's a couple of application users that you need to set up in originally both CDS or Dataverse and F&O, but they have actually changed that recently, which is another side of it. So you can see all of these data projects here. So when you actually run a data project, when you set up Dual Write and run initial sync, there's basically a data project that's created. You can go into Dual Write as well and manage all of the mappings from within here. So when it loads. And you can define all of these. You can also just quickly add a table map. So this works against custom entities. The ALM aspect of Dual Write is actually very, very powerful and quite useful. The only thing that's worth noting is that you have to apply the solution, but the ALM aspect is all handled within solutions within Dataverse. So I would just create a example Dual Write solution, and then I would add there's a Dual Write table map there basically. So you would add that, and then you can export that out throughout. So it's quite good from an ALM aspect. So it's managed and set up within here. If it's, you obviously have the ability to have it as running, and then you can also run initial sync throughout this as well. You can unlink it. So if you need to link it from this Dataverse environment to another, you can do that here as well. So once Dual Write is set up, you basically have somewhat of a seamless integration between the two systems, which it does work quite well, to be honest. So I'm going to jump over quickly to my Star Wars themed portal. Yeah, may the portal be with you. So you can go in and view, basically in this case, I have a bunch of vendors that exist in finance and operations. So if I go log back into finance and operations, and I can see my list of vendors here. So I can actually see Jabba's Hut or Ewok Supplies. And in this case, I might just want to go in and say, actually, Ewok Supplies, that primary number is wrong. It's actually 6 if they want to phone me, and submit that. Oh, I need to put in a first name as well. So I'm just going to put in Yoda for this and submit. And there we go. It's went through. So it's updated that I've changed that to a 6 there. And then if I to view this record and I just refresh, I'll press refresh. You'll see there that it's quickly changed to 6. So it's a really, really good way. So to basically get data updated, but also have customers go in. And I did have a good example within here of submitting vendor details, but basically this could be anything. You can go in here and fill out any form within here. One of the use cases we did was around creating a claim process. So there's quite a lot that you can do. And this is just a small example that you could go in and set by default, you have to set the company, so you need to link to the legal entity effectively, but you can go in, create all of this. We can just put in that. I'll just put in Ewok, something like that. Oh, I think the portal gods are not being good to me tonight. But basically, you could go through and maybe that this already exists potentially, but you could go through and submit a record effectively into the system using this. But I don't know why it's giving me an error. And this is the generic sort of failure that can occur sometimes with that. But basically, it's a way that you can go in and submit records, and you could go in and update your data pretty seamlessly. However, as you have seen, there are some downsides that can exist as part of Dual Write, and I just really wanted to highlight those as well. Initial sync is not a fully fledged data migration tool and shouldn't really be used as one. That's one of the first things that is worth noting. And you'll actually see from this page that if you search Dual Write, if anybody Googles Dual Write, you'll actually see that Dual Write problem is the most recommended thing. But I've run into issues in the past where initial sync basically completely has frozen, and the only way to unfreeze that is remapping or unlinking the environment, and in certain cases restart's been required. It's worth mentioning that data is very important, So you have any misaligned data can cause quite a few knock-on effects. So things like, as we kind of mentioned further on, is auto numbering or number sequencing in finance and operations. It can actually cause quite a few issues. So the out-of-the-box mappings as well themselves, if you have other prerequisites set up in either Dataverse or finance and operations, can run into quite a few issues. Microsoft have not themselves been updating the documentation, which again is not great when you're setting up, when you're actually setting up Dual Write in itself. So there's a few things that they've improved, which is good, but they seem to change it every time. So every time I've went to set up Dual Write, it's changed basically. And then you've got data transformation issues. So if you create a default option set in Dataverse, you're normally given something like an 8,000 and something number. That doesn't actually work. So you have to go in and change those background values for it to work with finance and operations. And then there's a few other things if you're wanting to do sort of initial sync. There's data deletion and cleanup. They're always required. So you really need to be aware of that because that's going to cause problems. If you happen to go in and delete some project work basically, or you delete any of the records in one system and then you run initial sync again, it's not going to pick up that those records are not there now. So you need to go in and delete the data project, that DWM record I showed you earlier. You need to go in and delete that and then run initial sync, and it'll synchronize all the records across. It's happened in a couple occasions if you've had a new field, etc., and you need that all synchronized across. You have order line sequencing. Basically, these are some of the more technical issues that we ran into, but you can have duplicate lines that can occur, and the way around that is setting up number sequencing on the integration keys. This is a weird one as well. So purchase order status from F&O to Dataverse. We flagged this with Microsoft, and we could go in and update any field on a purchase order, and it would be synchronized across. So we could change the status. So if we updated the address on a purchase order, anything like that. But if we updated the status itself, nothing triggered. So we had to do a manual workaround to update that. And to be honest, that was kind of Microsoft said they're aware of it and working on it, but there's still a few issues that we've ran into, and a couple of other weird quirks just to make you aware of from more of a portal aspect or Dataverse side of things. Currency codes within Dataverse, they actually use a display name, and within so pound sterling, but within F&O it's the currency code. So we had a couple of cases where pound sterling was appearing instead of GBP, so you kind of get that mismatch, and that's really where you need to get the environments tidied up and lined up. So ALM, I'll not spend ages on this, but basically anything that you do with Dataverse, that works fine as normal, as part of the normal ALM process. But so anything portal specific, generally put in a portal solution. So any forms, any views, table lists, anything like that, that works fine, no issues. However, the migration of portals and that side of things is really, really not great. Basically, I had multiple attempts the very, very first time of doing this and tried many tools. Microsoft has a tool to do it, but all of the records within the Power, basically within the portal. So let me just jump in quickly. And if I go to portal management, so you'll see all of these records here. So web roles, anything to do with table permissions, web pages, web templates, that you cannot put any of these records or any of these entities into a solution, basically. So the only way to do that is using a portal migration tool, which is after many attempts and many hours spent, there is a tool in XRM Toolbox called Portal Records Mover. Just use that if you have to migrate a portal at the minute. However, the ALM side, Microsoft are massively improving and working on going forward. And Dual Write works really well, to be honest, in terms of the ALM process. If you're going to go down a full DevOps pipeline approach, you have to remember that those solutions do actually need applied in F&O. So you still need to link the environments within Dual Write in F&O and apply the solution. But following that, the ALM aspects are actually quite good with Dataverse, to be totally honest, and Dual Write combined. It does work quite well. So this is the sort of potential future I see of both portals and Dual Write. So I have kind of highlighted some of the downsides of it, but just making you aware of some of the troubles and problems that you can run into with both systems. And one of the things that I think is very positive that's happening is Pcf controls. Now that they are coming, that's going to help so much. It's going to save a lot of time and basically a lot of custom development and make forms and customer and end user interaction a lot more user friendly. One of the areas that I've actually highlighted the bits in red that are my sort of speculation, whereas things in black are actually pretty much firmed up and are happening. So improvements to the Portal Studio, I think this is going to be, from my honest opinion, a huge area of investment from Microsoft themselves. I can see that being a big area that they're going to put a lot of money into and make the whole experience a bit more of a WYSIWYG drag and drop. So if you have a button, you can just drag it in, whereas it's not really like that at the minute. It's still sort of, you've got to update the web page template. It's still quite not so low code approach friendly. Portal ALM is improving. So huge pain point that I've dealt with in the past and still do currently or have recently. That is improving, and the expected, I believe, GA on that is 2022 early, I think maybe January or February, give or take. They do need, as I've highlighted, to really revamp the out-of-the-box templates. As you've seen, they're not really fit for real enterprise use, especially, and even frankly for SMEs or small businesses, it's not great. That there's a lot of work and refinement that either needs to be put into them or improvements need to be done. Dual Write itself, I actually see getting a lot more streamlined. So maybe potentially combining. There's a couple of solutions that have to be set up. I can see them combining those potentially into one, and even things like the automation of setting up you have to set up a couple application users in each system. They've started automating that on the Dataverse side, but they haven't on the F&O side yet. So, which was a bit of a guessing game because I was trying to put in I was trying to manually set them up as you normally would do, and it said it already exists. Yeah, it wasn't actually there in the application user. So, some of the pain points again, but I see them sort of making that process quite slick going forward. And generally speaking, they are improving initial sync and the Dual Write issues that they're aware of. I have seen a lot of changes from them, and there's quite a few updates that I've seen that are quite positive. And the big thing that I see long term is, as I mentioned, ADX Studio, the portal itself underlying is if you look at all the schema and all the information, it still says ADX everywhere. And I frankly think, and this would be a huge project by Microsoft to take on, but I do think sort of 5 years or so time down the road, they will eventually do a complete revamp architecturally of the portals themselves. That's kind of where I see things going, but it'll be a huge project for them to do that. And that is about it for now. So thank you everyone for listening.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah, I found that awesome. I do have one question actually, because I might have come across this. So where you have set up portals, have you ever done it for customers that already use Dataverse for CRM and applying these solution files to existing Dataverse instances with data in? Like, how did that go?
Well, one of the projects, funnily enough, that I worked on, they decided to, for whatever reason, they had They wanted, it was for a housing association, and for whatever reason, they wanted to change their UAT environment to be a more a development environment. And that had a portal set up in it and all of the records and everything. And just the amount of work that was involved in, and also the dependencies in all the, as you kind of highlighted there, Kayla, all the dependencies in the solution files was just a headache, to be honest. And one of the other things as well that we did on this project is we actually had North 52. And then North 52 has a portal solution. So their idea is like everything has to be JavaScript within the portal. So let's kind of try and create a more low code approach to that. But that then caused even more problems because there was all the portal North 52 solutions in there, and it just went on and on and on. So it's a huge challenge when you start to get customer data with existing systems. Yeah. One of the things that I've always kind of recommended is creating portal specific sort of forms or views, things like that, because if you're using the same view in a model driven app and someone goes in and updates that, or that view in a CRM, it could potentially affect what your external customers, and people just don't put the two and two together sometimes, depending on the use case.
Yep, exactly that. So based on everyone's really quiet, and I know Rakesh is waiting, I think we should hand over to start talking a bit about enterprise reporting. Do a bit about that, but thank you, Justin. That's really awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. Am I audible to all?
Hi, Rakesh. Yeah, you can hear you, mate.
Okay, let me just quickly share my screen.
Ooh, nice backdrop.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay, so I'll quickly start with the presentation deck. I guess I do have 30 to 35 minutes.
Of course, yes, mate.
Okay, so I'll just quickly start with the presentation. I'll just try to cover a couple of points, the topic for today's discussion, who am I and what we are going to see. And towards the end, I'll just try to touch base on 2 key use cases, and then we'll open for a Q&A. Okay, so I'll just quickly start with who am I. So my name is Rakesh, and I've been working with TCS in Mumbai. TCS stands for Tata Consultancy Services. I'm a Center of Excellence lead for Finance and Operation app, predominantly focusing on ERP and other engagement of Power Platform and Powerapp. I'm also responsible for solution architecting for large customers across the globe. At the same time, for a community work, I'm a group leader for Mumbai, India, Dynamics 365 and Power Platform community. I've been part of this ERP right from the first version of ERP 3.0. It's more than 20 years now. I've been part of this ERP. Before joining this ERP, I've been working as a software developer in VC++, and then I moved on to the ERP segment. As part of the implementation scope, I've been working almost all the industries across manufacturing, utilities, and the core retail and supply chain management as well. At the same time, I also engage in one of the implementation where the core HR implementation was done. I live and work in almost all the countries across the globe. Currently, I'm in work from India, but I've been part of many projects in UK, US, Europe, and Qatar. As part of my certification, I'm certified solution architect in Finance and Operation app. And recently, I've been awarded for Microsoft Certified Trainer as well. At the same time, I do focus more on writing a white papers. That is where the thought leadership comes into picture. You might have noticed me on LinkedIn. Recently, I post a white paper on a self-governing ERP concept and how the machine learning or a deep learning and intelligent AI, that is artificial intelligence of artificial AI, is going to be how it is going to be infused in the finance and operation app or any sort of ERP. So I just try to share my thought process as a thought leader. At the same time, I'm also certified in Azure, predominantly focusing on architecting and solutioning area, mainly on the platform as a services and function as a services. Okay, let's quickly move on to agenda today. So what we have agenda today, we have the electronic reporting, the introduction for those who are maybe having a little bit or a basic knowledge on what is this electronic reporting is all about. Then we will also try to see touch base the out-of-the-box capability. Those are currently exist in the finance and operation apps and might be useful for users or maybe implementation partners to do the fit gap or a mapping of those. I have seen a mini implementation where partners or customer, they always try to love with the SSRS reports, but I strongly feel that because of the SaaS ERP and the cloud product, there are a couple of other bunch of options are available for a reporting. So I'll just try to touch base on those aspects as well. Then we'll have a deep dive on a key business use cases. Often I heard from customers and community members that why this electronic reporting is there, right? What is the key use cases where I as a business user or maybe I as an implementation partner should focus on, right? So that is where I just try to highlight based on again my experience, what are the key use cases, business use cases where the electronic reporting is a direct fit of the out-of-the-box capability. And then towards the end, I'll just try to walk you through two key use cases where we will see the existing report, which has been shipped out of the box for one of the capability of free text invoice, and we will see the report is been shipped with Excel. But many times, the end user or a business user, they are not familiar with this sort of Excel-based report. They wanted to have some sort of invoicing format, which is maybe in a legacy world, or they just wanted to modernize in a different template formats. So that is where the challenges that I have seen, from moving the existing template from Excel to Word. So that is one of the use case that we will see, which is a live demo. At the same time, this is a low code and no code approach of this electronic reporting, right? Where it gives you the ability not only for the professional developers, but also for the citizen developers and the business users to build a report from scratch. So those who are familiar with the Dynamics ERP or financial operation app or a previous version, you might have noticed it is sometimes or most of the time it's too difficult to define the business logic, have a dialogue with the developer, give him or her the understanding of the report, what is the report dialogue is look like, and how that. So we are going to see how quickly, maybe in a 10 minutes or so, how quickly you can build a report and see the report with the input value of that, right? And again, it will be based on your need of the whatever the template that you design. And then finally, we'll open for towards the end, we'll open for the Q&A. Okay. So I'll just quickly move on to next slide. So what is electronic reporting, right? It's a GER. It's a general electronic reporting. Many people refers a short form as a GER, but I love to call as a the electronic reporting. That is how the power of the low code and low code approach comes into picture. So by definition, the electronic reporting is nothing but it's a tool, it's a configurable tool, or I would say it's an engine that comes with out of the box of financial operation app, which allow user, whether it's a business user or a citizen developer, to create, configure any sort of reports or a format which they want to pursue in their day-to-day activity, whether it's an incoming report or whether it's a outgoing document. So think about a scenario, you're building a document which is going outside your organization, maybe it's an invoice copy or any sort of document or any sort of file that you want to export as a XML, CSV or a text for that matter, right? You might have noticed in a previous world of technology, in a previous version of ERP of finance and operation, that is 2012 or 2009, a developer used to write a lot of logic to extract the data into CSV or text file, right? But with the help of electronic reporting, you can go and do that in a configurable manner without writing a single line of code. At the same time, I just wanted to highlight a key aspect that I strongly feel from a capability of a reporting perspective. One is easy to configure based on your format. No need to depend upon what Microsoft has shipped as part of the product capability. You can always go and either modify, that is extend it further, or build your own format from scratch. So it allows you to configure the format as per your wish. Then it allows you to build your own logic and the extensibility. What is mean that, for example, Microsoft has provided a report where you strongly feel that the report logic for a calculation of one of the field is not as per my requirement, right? And often in the previous era of the technology, we used to always depend on a developer, and developer has to write a bunch of code to modify the code, and then we need to go with a lot of testing process of, whether it's a unit testing, regression testing, or for that matter, a user story testing, right? But with the power of electronic reporting, a business user can define their own formula using the concept of formula designer, very similar to Excel-based report, the way we define the calculate function, the way we define the logical expression of if and else condition, right? The same engine that is being used in the formula designer of finance and operation app, especially in the electronic reporting. Third one is the business logic and rule, right? Often you have seen, right, where a business logic or rule to be defined, whether it's a logic to be defined on the particular dialogue, where my from date and to date should not be greater than my from date, or maybe some validation to be fired, or some fields to be visible, or some condition to be fulfilled. For example, take example of invoice reports, right? The invoice template is common. However, the template is common across two end countries. One is UK and the other one is Belgium. However, based on a country specification, the tax component, which is going to be repeated multiple times or at once, right? So that is where we can build that business logic using the formula designer without writing again a single line of code. And the fourth one is nothing but a localization. You might have seen that when there is a need of the art from a localization report perspective, right? There's always a trade-off to be good. For example, the localization requirement either is very traditional way of thinking through exported data into CSV or any specific XML format, right? In our earlier world, we used to just write a single line of code or multiple line of code. But here in the electronic reporting, you can simply go and either try to leverage out of the box reporting capability, what is as part of the localization, or you can build your own. I'll just show you how you can quickly build that. As I mentioned, it supports text file, XML file, any sort of Word, Excel, or Open XML file. It's mainly built for low code and no code approach, where you can write a low code or maybe a no code, right? That is how the idea behind this electronic reporting engine. Then coming back to the actual view, right? So as I mentioned in the presentation day, as you can see here, right, there are two aspects when it comes to the electronic reporting view. The very first view is a localized the configuration, where we call as a reporting configuration. It's mainly for the view that developer purpose, because it comes with a lot of components. I'll show you in a minute how it looks like and what are the components that we need to be more focused and to be configured when it comes to new report or existing report to be modified. So I call it as a developer view because it comes with a lot of features. Whereas there's another view that is available in the application, which allows any sort of business documents to be, modified by the business user itself only. Okay. And when I'm seeing the business documents, it's predominantly documents, whether it's a sales order, purchase order, your collection letters, your any sort of journals. These are the set of documents that has already been part of your form setup. Those documents automatically classify as a business document. And by just looking at a screen, you would probably notice that, right? It comes with the Excel sheet, and then you can modify the Excel, add or modify any sort of fields, right? Whereas in the first option, you will get a additional bonus. In addition to this modification in Excel, you can also add or modify your existing or new reports. Okay, I'll show you as part of the use cases that I just highlighted in the presentation day earlier, right? Quickly move on to next slide, which talks about what are the options that are available in terms of reporting in the product capability action. I'm not going to touch base everything because it will take a lot of time. I need to give more focus to the hands-on experience first. But in the interest of time and again in the context of today's presentation, I'll talk about more on the electronic reporting. But just to give you a high-level background, the capability that product offers, there are a bunch of options. When it comes to use case which are interactive sort of documents, then SSR is the direct fit, where you can either use out-of-the-box capability of SSRS, those for the product, or you can build your own SSRS report. When it comes to financial reporting, there is a good tool around, which is a management report, which allows user to either modify the existing one or create a new financial reports, whether it's a trial balance sheet, profit and loss, any sort of reports. If there is a need for a tabular sort of reports view, right, then we can leverage Power BI. So there's a Power BI online service or Power BI desktop in addition to the SSRS report. If there is a need for ad hoc reporting, right, many times there are enterprises or organizations, they need certain data to be exported as it is, right? So we can leverage Excel, because Excel has comes with the capability of the add-ins, and that add-ins is part of your F&O connections, right? That how the data is being exposed. Then you can use Excel for ad hoc reporting. At the same time, Power BI can also be using the Power Query. There is another aspect, which is Excel integrations, where Excel add-in and the Power BI, where Excel as an add-in can be exposed as a data subject to that particular UI or that particular form has a data entity enabled. Okay, so there's a key difference. When it comes to Excel, it means we need to completely rely on the existing one, whereas in the Excel add-in, you can go and extend it further, add your own entity and enable it for Excel add-in. There is another category in the out-of-the-box reporting where the data to be exchanged, that is where the data entity concept comes into picture. So either you can leverage the existing one or create your own data entity, and the data can be exposed, and that is where mainly predominantly used for integration for inbound data and for outbound data. The next category is the analytics, where the two reporting capability options comes into picture from the financial and operational perspective. One is the workspaces. Those who are familiar with the workspaces, you might have noticed, right? There are bunch of workspaces are part of the product capability, as well as you can also create your new workspaces based on your needs. So that comes in the analytics sort of reporting options, and plus the Power BI, where you can have the some sort of graphical representation in the Power BI report. At the same time, you can also use the SSRS reports for barcoding. So if there is a need for any sort of manufacturing industry organization where they need a barcode report to print, SSRS can be used as a reporting tool, okay? Or they can use any third-party apps like a Zebra printer or Zebra printing sort of thing, right? At the same time, there's also concept of data warehouse. There are a bunch of options that product supports. We are using the ADLS, that is Azure Data Lake Services, or for a bring your own database concept, or using the Azure SQL or Azure Synapse, or for that matter, and entity stores. In today's discussion, we are going to focus more on the electronic reporting, where we will see the Excel and the Word sort of information, how those templates are going to be extracted within a few seconds of time, okay? There is a last category which I strongly feel that nowadays it is more prominent, and every business user would like to go with that, which is the predictive analysis. And there are many functionalities are available in the product for study, and you can replicate as it is, and you can build on top of that. One of the case is the forecasting, which is built using the Azure machine learning, which allows you to build your own machine learning data model and train that model based on your conditions of the data. Okay. Then I'll quickly move on to next slide, where try to highlight a couple of high-level business use cases where the reporting of electronic comes into a direct fit. One of the key aspect is the exporting documents or a payment file. Often those customers who are currently or maybe dealing in the past or in the current, they're dealing with any sort of bank information. Take an example of a BACS in the case of UK. It's pretty much common in UK, right, that BACS information file to be exchanged. So in any sort of information to be exported further, electronic reporting is a direct fit where a business user can go and add the multiple data sources, build a relationship with those data sources, add the additional logic in the formula designer, and the report is ready for data to be extracted. Then there is a specific requirement for localization, because localization always comes with the wrapper of some sort of legacy world, because many organizations or governments are having some sort of old system, and they are referring to either XML to be generated or text file or a comma or a pipe delimited file to be generated, right? That is where without writing a single line of code, the electronic reporting can be used. As I mentioned earlier, ad hoc reporting is also one of the options. One of the use case that I strongly feel, and I also seen in many implementation which I did in the past and in the current, where the business documents, often business users want to decorate their document in such a way that, because it is going to be outbound, and they want every terms and condition, the formatting, the repeating control, everything to be captured as part of that documents. And if you try to compare with the SSRS, there is a bunch of the deployment activity to happen. A developer presence is required. If at all, if someone want to change the column width, someone wants to change the additional column, or someone wants to modify any content, you need to rely on a developer, and developer is to modify the business logic as well as the reporting design of that SSRS. Then whole bunch of process of ALM comes into picture, where you need to deploy the changes to a lower environment, have a testing done, and then again deploy in the production. So there is a need of deployment for a downtime is required, so and so forth, right? But in the case of electronic reporting, this is not required. A business user can do that on the fly. And when it comes to export from one system to another system, it goes with the XML file. You just export the file and import into your target system, and it's boom, it's working perfectly fine. Okay. At the same time, it does allow you to define your own format, right? So that is where, if you try to compare this use case with the legacy world, where someone is to always depend on a developer, and developer is to design based on a condition, and often there is a need from a business to change the report format regularly, right? You need to always go back and change that format for some valid reason. But with the help of electronic reporting, you can go and define your own format as much as you can and modify it at any time. I'll show you in one of the use case. I just try to highlight that. Another point, there are a bunch of out-of-the-box templates comes with the products, which you can leverage and try to see how that has been built, and you can also simply duplicate it and you can use it for your purpose. Okay, so without investing much time, where to go and how to understand. Okay, you can just simply duplicate it and do whatever you want to do on top of that. Right. Electronic reporting, one of the use cases that I've seen where the organization is majorly depends on a report sort of information, right? Where they need a bunch of reports to be generated, some sort of ad hoc reporting or reporting for ad hoc or maybe for auditing purpose. In that case, electronic reporting is the best tool to extract the information from the system without writing in a single line of code. Another point is the business user, as I mentioned earlier, right? It goes hand in hand with business users and the citizen developers both. Don't require any sort of pro developers who understand only X++ language and the SSRS sort of thing, right? If a business user or citizen developer are well understood the data model of the F&O or the data model that he or she understood as part of their key responsibility or the understanding of the scope of the business, they can go and do that reports, right? And last but not least, your regulatory information. Often there are quite a bunch of organizations out there where they need data to be exchanged with the government bodies, right? And often government bodies try to change some information in the format, right? And the business user needs to again go back and change whole bunch of business logic and again go back to that some sort of testing suite again, right? So that is where electronic reporting comes with a very lightweight sort of information where business user can go and modify it, right? Next slides where I'll just try to highlight the high level view and what are the components that comes with the GER. I'll just try to simplify as much as I can. However, we will try to see more on the application when we'll have a deep dive in the tool use cases. So there are high level, there are three more components. One is a model, second one is a model mapping, and third one is a format designer. Okay. So the model mapping is nothing but in a plain English statement is just a data field. So whatever fields that you want to be part of your report, whether it's a report data to be appear on your UI or a viewer, or any field that you want to be available on the dialog, for example, date, for example, any sort of filters, right? Those comes under the data model and can be encapsulated as part of your model component. Okay. There is another component called model mapping. So model mapping and model are tightly coupled each other. So as soon as you create a model and then you start creating a model mapping on top of the model, it's in the behind the scene, it try to build a relationship with the model and it automatically build a connection with your data fields. As you can see here, I just try to highlight how these data fields are currently being part of model mapping. Those were exist in the model, and then you start defining your expression. That is where a business logic comes into picture. You start defining the binding of the fields with your business logic inside this model mapping. Okay, so the key aspect of the model mapping is grab the fields that has been defined in the model, have your expression defined, do the binding, and then just boom, and then define the rules. Once you're done with the model and the model mapping, the last component is the format design, where you will see whatever the activity that you perform in the model and a model mapping, which is nothing but your defining of fields and data types, as well as your expressions, automatically will be again linked with the format designer. So these three components are tightly, tightly coupled with each other. At the same time, the format does allow you to select your template, whether you want a template to just extract the file, whether it's a text file, XML file, you want data to be exported into a Excel file, or you want data to be exported into Word file, and then you will again try to start doing the binding of those data fields to the templates, right, which you already perform as part of mapping. Behind the scenes, it just builds a relationship with the mapping, but on the surface of a format designer, a user get ability to define the template as well as the data fields and as well as the expressions. Okay. The one of the key aspect and the beauty of this whole electronic reporting and the business document that no need to maintain and keep a track somewhere in Azure DevOps in a repository, that I'm maintaining the versioning of so and so, because the changes are happening frequently in my model or model mapping, or for that matter in designer. No need to worry about it. It maintains the version itself in the application, in the database itself only. So think about a scenario. Today you modify one version of, created a new report from scratch, which has a model mapping and a format designer. Tomorrow someone is saying that, hey, just change the sum of the fields, or I need additional fields over here, right? No need to worry about it. You can just simply go with the existing one, modify the changes that you want to add as part of any component that I highlighted here, and just change the versioning itself, right? And it is part of the application database itself only. At the same time, once you are done with those changes, you can just simply export those changes, and those changes will be exported as part of XML file, and you can just simply import those XML file into the target system, whether it's your test system or whether it's a production system, right? So no need to depend upon your LM process where you need a downtime to deploy those changes. So on the fly, you can do those changes, and those changes will be automatically available in the your target system without taking any sort of downtime. Okay. Okay. So let's deep dive into the demo now, where we will talk about these two scenarios. I have purposefully opened the two sessions so that you can understand, while navigating into the two different screens. Okay. So if you want to start a journey with the electronic reporting, there's a one single place where you need to go and navigate. One is the organization administration module. There is a workspace called electronic reporting. This is where the developer view comes into picture, as I mentioned earlier, right? And you want to switch to the business document modifications, then you need to search from here. There is no specific menu item exists in the any module as such, but there is a workspace available. When you just go and search it, you will find the documents over here, whatever the documents that you created, right? It will be available here, and with the help of modification of this online version, you can modify that. Okay, so I'll quickly start with the highlighting the key aspect of electronic reporting, right from the configuration to the creation of the report from the scratch. Okay, so when you open the electronic reporting, there are key aspects that you need to take into consideration. One, your configuration providers. Okay, so this is where the concept, you might have noticed when you deploy a new environment, it comes with the standard configuration provider by Microsoft, and that is where the concept is Microsoft is owning up all the out-of-the-box electronic reports that has been part of the product, or they are planning to ship, or whatever they exist in the product that has been tagged to this provider. So provider is nothing but a concept where the organization who builds that particular, or the owner of that that electronic report. If you want to modify any sort of existing reports that has been shipped by the product, you need to have your own provider. I have created my provider for any sort of new report to be built or any existing report to be modified. Once the provider is created successfully, then you need to go and set that provider as active here by just clicking on set as active. I already did that. That is how you can see the tick mark over here. But if at all, if you want to just import out of the box electronic report, what you can do is just click on the repositories over here. Once you click on the repository, you will see two options. One is the global, and that is where you would see all the out of the box the reports that are part of the application will be available for you to import part of your application. So currently these reports are available on LCS, but Microsoft has built that seamless view for the business user. So you can see here, right, there are a bunch of reports are available. For example, your asset declarations, your any sort of audit, any sort of balance report, bank statement. Again, those are very specific to countries or very common for all the countries. You can also see a bill of lading, cash receipts. This is again based on individual business requirement. There are a bunch of reports for UK specific for CIS monthly reports and all. If you want to just filter any report, you can use a find, or you can use a find directly over here. If I want to just import a free text invoice, what I'll do, I'm just go here and just type the free text invoice. As soon as I do that, it will navigate me to free text invoice. And as I mentioned earlier, right, the two components, the model mapping, and the list of versions. You just click on import, and all the details will be automatically import into your system. So again, in the interest of time, I already done this activity. So I'll just quickly click on this report configuration option, where you will see the existing report that has been already imported by me in the system, which is my invoice model, Freetex invoice model, and all the dependent components, right, which is associated with that. So if you just go back to the presentation deck and just try to correlate connect the dot of this model mapping and the format designer. So I'll just quickly walk you through. So this is nothing but your model, and this is nothing but your model mapping, okay, and this is what your designer. So as you can see here in the designer, if I just go inside the designer of this Excel, again, this is out of the box reports. You will find all the reports component, whether it's a header, a line, or a details, will be available here as part of the products information. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new report. So the use case over here is I'm having a customer details, and I want to build a report where I need a field on a report where it will allow me to enter a date, which will be as on date, whatever the list of customers, those who are having the balance due amount, right? So I know there are a bunch of data, for example, customer transactions I can easily export, but I want that report to be built, right? So I'll just quickly walk you through how quickly you can build this report using the electronic reporting without writing any single line of code. That is one of the use case. Another use case where I'll try to touch base on the existing or out of the box report of Excel, but my business user wants this Excel template to be modified into Excel or a Word, for example, from Excel to Word. And how quickly you can do that, subject to you have a Word template ready with you. You can design your own Word template the way you used to design in a traditional manner, and just map those required fields which you want to be part of that Word template. Okay, so let us quickly start with the first use case. If you want to create a new report from a scratch, this is a place where you can just simply go and create a configuration, and you need to select a route. Why route? Because this is the first component that you're going to build over here. So I'm going to just create a custom BAL, for example, ERP model. You can just copy and paste based on your wish, and then you can just select. As you can see here, right, as my default configuration, the custom one that I have created is automatically defaulted here, right, where I'll get the ability to modify or a report or build a report from a scratch. So as soon as do that, if you can see here, the model template has been created, right? Now the question is how I'm going to add the additional fields. Again, I'll go back to presentation deck. You can see here, right, the data fields for the model and the model mapping and the mapping of those data fields and the formula designer. So right now we are here for the model mapping. So what I can see here, I just create the model here. Now I'm going to define my fields. So my use case is I need to show two columns in a report, which is my customer account and my customer balance amount. At the same time, I need a one field on a report dialog, right, which is the balance due date. So I'm going to click on a designer of this model, and I'm going to create my data model over here. First, I'll create again a root elements, which is my cust model ERP Meetup. You can give any specific names, up to you. This is just the container where all the components which you are going to add as part of this data model. So I just define that. In addition to this, I will just go and define a child element, which is my cust table, because I need to get the data from a cust table. So here I can select the item type, whether I want any specific data type, if I talk about in technical term, or if I want any sort of records or record list. I want a multiple records of from a cust table. So that is where I'm going to select the record list over here. So as soon as I create that, I need two columns on my report. So I'm going to just click again as a child of an active node, which is my account num, which is my customer account number, and this is my string. I'm going to click on this. Then second one is my BAL amount. That is my balance amount, which is my real value, which I'm going to do here. So as you can see here, now we are done with the container, the tables, which I'm going to fetch the records, and my just two values which are to be part of my reports, right? Then the last one is my dialog field, right, which I'm going to add as a balance due amount or balance due date. So bal due date, which will be my data type as a date. Okay. You might have noticed I just selected this one and as my parent and child, because I do not want this field to be part of my table record list, because I want this field to be used for just input in the value as a dialog, and then that based on the input value, it will just start populating the data from my cust table. Okay, so that's all. Once it is done, let us save the information. Okay, and you might have noticed here, right? It start maintaining the version 1, right? So, and the status is draft. One thing which you need to keeping in mind, whatever thing that you are going to do, it will be always allowed you to perform in a draft status. But you want to just modify something and you're done with that modification, you need to always change the status to complete. So that is where I'm done with these changes and I'm going to change the status to complete. Okay, so this is my model is done. Again, I'm going to do the mod designer and then I'm going to create a model mapping here. Okay, again, I'm connecting a dot with the Excel, the model mapping. So as soon as I click on the model mapping over here, which you can notice here, model to model data source mapping, I'm going to click new. You can see the definition will allow me to select the model that I have created earlier, which I gave the notice name of the mapping, and I'm just going to save this. As soon as I save this, it will allow me to design. And this is where the whole, the design or the some sort of definition or the business logic comes into picture. As you can see here, there are 3 sections. Left section is more on the mapping, where bunch of data sources are available for you to define whether it's a data model, whether it's any sort of business logic which exists as a class or object or a tables or record that you can use for operation as well as for retail both. You can also use a format, whether you want a specific format for export and imports, that you can use that. You want to use any sort of barcode, specific code that you want to use, or you want to perform any sort of functions that is comes under calculated fields, you can use that. At the same time, you can also define your user input and some sort of tax document. So predominantly this section talks about your lot of mapping which you need to be used as part of your report. Again, it is vary based on your business use case. The second option is allow you to, basically it's a surface where you'll just add your data sources, and from that point onward it will start building the link, as I mentioned in the presentation day earlier, with the data fields. Your expressions will be start mapping here. So this is the surface over here, and then you'll do the the data model mapping one. So I'll just quickly start define the data model mapping. So as again trying to repeat, the report is having 2 columns. One particular column will be account, second one will be my balance amount, and the report will have a dialog, and that dialog will have a specific field of my date, and that date will be my as on date, where the system will give me a list of customers. Those balances are due until today or until whatever date that I'm going to enter in that specific thing per date, basically. Okay, so whenever you want to do any sort of information here, you just take a empty container over here by selecting the option here as an empty container. You can define is my report container, any sort of name or best practices that you want to follow, you can do that. As soon as you do that, then you can add the then you can select the table records here by clicking on this, and then next step is click on this. As soon as you click that on this, you can notice here the table records as a data source is going to be added. So you can specify the name of this table, that is in my case cust table. You can filter this record. You will see all the tables, standard as well as the custom tables will be available here, and I'm going to look up for the cust table over here. Okay, so this is my cust table. As you can see here, it does allow you to fetch the data using a cross company, where you want the data to be fetched from multiple companies, if that is a requirement of your use case. Or you can also use for integration point, or you can use for ask for a query. That is where it will automatically ask the query dialog, typically the query dialog that we used to build in a X++, right? So without having the X++ interfere, you can build using this model mapping and model. So as you've done that, just click OK. Then your report, the content is defined, your table is defined. When you click on the report, sorry, not report, your table, you would notice here, right, all the fields and the associated fields of that table is get automatically going to be populated here. See, all the fields. In addition to this, you will also see all the relationship, whether it's a forward relationship or whether it's a backward relationship. If I just click on this, wherever this cust table is being used, all the relations will be automatically available here. It takes some time because it tried to run on a cache mode. So if I click on first time, it takes some time. So it will show you all the data sources which is part of this relationship. Okay. At the same time, you can also notice here all the fields, all the not only fields, all the methods that were part of the cust table will be automatically available for you to use in your report without writing any single line of code. So you can notice here, right? All these dependent tables which were part of the cust table earlier and currently exist will be available for you to do your data mapping. Okay, so I'm just going to collapse that again in the context of our discussion today. So this is what I just pick up the blank container, the table records, and I assign my table, that is cust table, and that give me a bunch of fields, the methods which were part of the cust table. Now the next step is to define the mapping of this, right? So that is where the model mapping concept comes into picture, right? And the expressions. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select my cust table. This is what my table records, and I'm going to select here the definition that I have created. I'm just going to simply click on the bind. Okay, my table is going to bind with the definition that I have already created. Then I'm going to bind this account number field which I have already created in my model with the data source that I have mapped over here as a cust table. So I need to just quickly look up for this field over here. So I'll just quickly drill down. You can also use the search option here, which will automatically navigate to that path. Is a customer account. I'm going to map this as a customer account. So you can notice here, right, at the red sign comes into picture. It means it is referencing to that particular data source and the particular field of the data source, right? Then the next one is the balance amount. I know in the cust table there is an existing method available, which is the balance due as per the date, which I'm going to use that. Okay, so you can see here balance per date. So this is a method which actually has a predefined business logic, and that predefined business logic takes the parameter of your date and automatically runs that date, based on our time. So I'm just going to quickly do that as a mapping. So this is what I'm done with the container and the field. And the last one is my, the input field. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select the container here, and I'm going to select the input parameter. That is where the, the additional field is going to be added, which is my balance due date. I think we are already on top of the hour. I'll just quickly run through it. I can select the trans date here. I'm going to select here. Then the next step is I need to add the balance date, because that is where the input field, this is the input field, right? So I just simply go here and add the field of balance due date. This is what the formula I was trying to refer here. This formula is nothing but your Excel-based formula. On the right-hand side, you'll see a lot of functions here, which you can directly use for your date formatting, your number formatting, any sort of conversion to happen, any sort of list, right? All bunch of logical and mathematical expressions are available here, and you just click on this and it will be available automatically in this formula designer. Now the formula that I wrote, right, it has some giving some message to be validated. I can just click on test and it will give me, okay, you need to save this message, and then it will give me, okay, it looks okay. You can see here on the right hand side, right, that the result is 0. It means it means it has no issue in terms of the syntax and everything, right? I'm going to save this. That's all. So I'm done with my model data mapping designer activity. I'm going to save this now, and I'll just quickly do the mapping of this with this, right? Because I need to bind this. Otherwise, it won't take that field value that I'm going to assign. Once I'm done this, I'm going to close all the forms and I'm going to complete this particular model, because that is how the mandatory steps. Whenever you change something, you need to modify all the reports, right? So I'll just quickly go and show you the report that I have built, very similar to this one, so that you can see here. So once you see this, right, and the next step is to go and create a format. So you can see here the format, right? So I'm going to report, for example, Cust, BAL, ERP, UK, Meetup, report, designer. And here it gives me ability to select the format that you want, whether it's a Word, Excel, or PDF. I'm going to select this. I'm going to select the data model here. You might have noticed in the presentation deck, I just tried to highlight how it is tightly coupled with each other, right? So as soon as you do that, you will see here your report designer is available. Okay. Again, in the interest of time, I already created a similar one. But if you have the blank one, if you just click on the designer, you will see this surface. It look like this. Okay. The one which I have created, you'll notice here in the designer, I have created the the designer the way I want. Okay. The table, Excel, and everything. I'm going to quickly show you how you can do that in the new one that I have created. I know we are already running out of time. You can see here, need to click add root. As soon as you click on add root, you get the ability whether you want file attachment, folders, Excel. In our case, it's Excel file, because everything you're going to record here as part of document, it has to be in Excel format. So as soon as I click that, I can define I can give the nice name of Cust table container. Again, this is a blank container over here. And you might have noticed here, right? It is allowing me to select a template, which is blank. So what it means? It means it is allowing to create a template in the format of Word or Excel that you want, and attach the template here. Then only you can create this, blank Excel template. So again, I'm going to create a blank one. You'll notice here, it's just a simple template, blank template. I need 2 columns over there as a report. One is my Cust account, and another is my BAL, that is my balance amount. Okay, this one is my header. I'm going to save this, maybe in a document, Cust account UK. That's it. I'm going to attach that template over here, which I've just newly created. You can design your own report or own template, right? I'm just trying to highlight how quickly you can do that. As soon as you perform this, just save this information. You can also preview this information that you have created over here, and then it will allow you to select that template over here. Okay. As soon as you perform this, you have a couple of options where language settings as per the user preference. I will not go into details now, but the point to be highlighted that it does allow you to define your numeric format, whether your format is like comma 0.00 something, right? You can define as per your requirement. The next step is to define the the range of the Excels over here. So you can define the Cust table range, and you can define the replication type, whether you want a horizontal or vertical data to be represent in your reports. As soon as you perform that, you're almost half of the activity of designing of that formula. Then into just add a cell over there. Okay, the way you design the Excel. So I need account num. I'll just take the account num, which is my string. I'm going to do that here. Then I'm going to add another cell, which is my BAL amount, which is the real. I'm going to say OK. And then I also need the cell for my balance due date, right, which is my input field. So I'm going to do that balance due date, which is a date. That's all. I'm done with this, right? As you can see here, now we are in a format, so it allows you to select a couple of options which you already selected. And then you click on the mapping, whatever the mapping that you have performed in the previous step, that is the model mapping, will be available here. And this is the last step where you just do the mapping here. This is my table, this is my container, and this is my Excel range. I'm going to map this Excel range with my table information by clicking on this bind. You can see here the model.cust table, and then I start mapping one by one field, which is account number of my Excel cell with the account number of my table fields. on the bind, you can see the @account num. For balance amount as well, the same step to be repeated. And for balance due, the balance due that we map as a input field. As soon as you've done that, you're done with the your designer, you're done with the model, you're done with the the model mapping. Now this report is ready for your execution. But before that, you need to just click on the again the format, because you might have noticed, right, the earlier. Let me just quickly go to the report file that I have attached, right, which is UK. I have enabled the developer tab here by going here and options. Why it is needed? Because it works on the XML mapping here. So this is a template that we have uploaded when we created a mapping, right? You might have noticed the standard schemas over here, right? And the idea is that we want XML, we want that model mapping schema to be appeared in the XML of the Word. So to do that, what you need to do, again, you need to come back here. Whatever the template that you attach here, you need to open this template as it is. Okay, it will be downloaded here as a test UK file. Open this file, edit it, right, and then you click on the developer tab. Now this time you would probably notice here, right, in the XML mapping file, you would notice here that additional designer option is going to be added here, which is reports, and exact whatever thing mapping that you have performed over here. If I just click on this here, will be automatically copy paste behind the scenes as soon as you attach that information here. Okay, and the next step or last step is to just start mapping. I want this repeated record because I know more than one record is going to be there, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to select this record. I'm going to just click on this. I'm going to just select this repeating control. That is how the repeating control is going to be added here automatically. Next step is just click on this cell and click on the account num. Take whatever rich text box or plain text box, whatever you want, and then add that text box and then map the value. That's all. And then repeat the same step for balance amount over here, this text box, and then map the. That's all. When you do that, you are done with your XML mapping with that is custom XML mapping with the table or with the repeated control with the MS Word. When you do that, close this. Again, come back here in the attachment, delete the existing one attachment because it has no XML mapping, and upload the new one that you have created just now, right? Which was there in the download one. I'm going to select this. I'm going to save this. Okay. And again, I'll close this and select this. Okay. So this template is now ready. I'm going to save this now, and I'm going to complete the step of this as complete because I'm done with this design pages. There are no more changes at this stage from my end. The next step is to run the report. So I'm going to run the report by clicking on run. You would notice here, right, that the report dialog is automatically populated. Your date is automatically available here. I'm going to select the date of 27th. First, I'm going to run the report for all the customers, and then I'll show you how you can add the range of a customer, right? What you already added. As soon as you click on this, you would notice the file is being downloaded, which is output something, right? And you would notice here, right, all the customer information started reporting here. I'll pick up one of the customers here, which is my US-001. I'm going to again come back here. I'm going to again run the report, and this time I'm going to add a filter over here. This is how the typical business user do that, right? I'm going to add a filter here with my customer, and the expectation, the to be view or to be report is that the report should give me only a specific filter information of this customer and not all the customer, right? So I'm going to open this file again. You can notice here this only one information without writing a line of code. You will notice here. You might also notice this file is coming with some default namespace, right? You can again go back here and modify the report file name by just clicking on this. And the mapping over here, you notice here the file name. Just click on this, okay? The way you define in Excel, right? Define my cust bal report ERP Meetup UK, and again try to see whether it is as per the syntax. Yes, it is. And then I'm going to save this. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to again save this formula designer, and again going to change the version. So as you can see here, right, whatever thing that you have performed is going to be recorded and is going to be secure in this respective version. So you can rebase the version if you want, you can export a reversion, you can use the export options over here, right? And the file will be exported as it is. You can see here, right? If I just click on the completed one, it will allow me to export the file, and you can import the file into your target environment that it is. Now I'm going to run this report again, and this time you will notice here, again I'll run it for this one particular customer of US-001. You will notice the file report name is changed, right? So Julia, how many minutes left for us? I just wanted
We
to
have
cover
enough time for you to just do a quick wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just cover a last portion.
Okay, mate.
Which is part of this use case, because this looks like loose coupled, because Word documents coming up, right? How I'm going to share with my third-party vendors or third-party customer, for that matter, any outbound call, right? So there is a great capability available in the reporting options, which is again the organization module, and you can come here the reporting destination. You can define the reports by converting the PDF, and that gets enabled through your one of the feature that you need to enable by enabling your future workspace. As you can navigate to the future workspace over here, you need to enable that. Let me just quickly search. Okay, and if you click on this workspace, there's a one particular feature which you need to enable. Then only this convert to PDF option will get enabled. So while this is loading, I'll just quickly show you. If you want this Word to be part of your automatic emailing capability in PDF, just click on this new, select your report that you created. We have created this report, set up the file destination over here, give the name of cust val report, specify the component which is your mapping the container that you created, right? And then you can also select, I think, let me just give this name. Okay, so it is saying it has more than one. Okay, so I'll show you the one which I have created. So if you go here in the electronic destination, you will notice here I have already created a PAL reports. In the setting, I have already enabled the email, archive, or screen, whatever you want to run, and also given a specific email address of this. Okay, you can also override during the execution. I'll just quickly showcase you if I want this report to be generated in PDF. I'll just quickly go here. I'll just click on this model one and the report that I have created. I'll run the report for a screen. I can just quickly go and change the email over here. Like I can go and change the email of, for example, Gmail. Okay, the moment I say okay and then do this, it will be available on screen as well as an email. So it is available on screen, and I'll just quickly check my email as well, which is my Gmail one. I'll just quickly check. See, as you can see here, right, this report is also available in the email format. Let me just quickly open this. If I open this, the same PDF that we have seen earlier, right? So that's all from my end, Julia and all.
Yeah,
That was fantastic.
Really, really, really good. Because from this point, we usually go into the panel, which is discussing the topics that presenters have made. And it looks like there was a really good conversation going on in the chat. So actually what I thought was probably going to be a good idea is for everyone to bring that conversation into the panel, because some of it went over my head, not going to lie, but I'm not a finance specialist in any means. I'm a techie. So I just wondered if, there was the original question, ultimately that came out about comparing inventory balance with the general ledger inventory. So I wondered if you guys wanted to come off mute and start actually talking about the problems you're experiencing and, you know, possible solutions. Like we've had some recommendations that have come out. So I think it might be a good topic for people to have a chat about.
Yeah, I think this is a very common scenario where in an organization they are mostly rely on the inventory balance. At the same time, they need to also compare the ledger balances. That is how the financial figures comes into picture, right? So this is where the way I showed this report, right? The business user can define the Excel template. They can select the inventory data sources and the dimensions for that matter as well. Whatever the dimension, whether it's a default dimension or an inventory dimensions, that will be available as an input parameter, and it will be automatically exist on the report. At the same time, it is not going to be fulfilled as a complete no code experience. You need to have some sort of low code to be appeared in the Excel or maybe in the X++ Word. But from a user perspective, it is going to be compared as an inventory balance report in comparison with the GL with the inventory one, right? So it is very much possible. I think I did this in the past, where both the reports can be compared in the same Excel sheet rather than, you know, comparing with any sort of SSRS report.
Thanks, mate.
I don't know any more.
That's a fantastic picture, Raz.
Anyone wants to say or any questions? Yeah. I don't know if there's any topics anyone wants to bring up. Otherwise, I can share the last bit of the deck because we are getting a little bit late anyway. I'm running on time, so let me put it back up. So, forums, social, and more. So all of these links we are now posting in the chat, but to be honest, you know the usual places to go. We've got the LinkedIn, we've got the Twitter pages, we've got the Meetup. Every month, the last Thursday of the month seems to be the happiest place for everyone to come and join us. Like we mentioned earlier, speaker requests, session requests. It sounds like everyone loved the enterprise reporting session. You know, there's a lot of chat going on in that. Just ask, you know, like Rakesh, we were stalking on LinkedIn to find people. And
yep, that's how we got him.
Literally, yeah. And he absolutely has done an amazing job. So literally give some feedback. Also, you are in the chat. Everyone, we've had 2 great sessions. Next month we're back, I think it's the 30th. Or is it the 30th?
Yeah, it's the 30th.
And also, if you guys are new joiners, we also on YouTube have all of the historic sessions that we've done. All of them are actually really, really good. And we try and totally mix it up every single time. So we've not got the same speakers, we've not got the same topics. So let us know, because ultimately we're just trying to help you get access to the information and bring a bit more of a community around it. So make sure, Justin, Rakesh, you add them on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to them if you've got any more questions, or us. And yeah, just chat really, and we'll see what happens. But there you go. So 30th of September, it was a request that came in through the form about how on earth do you manage finance and operations environments these days. They're getting more complicated. Microsoft are locking them down. We don't really know which way to turn anymore. So we've got Kelly coming on and joining us to go through that and best practices and how to keep it cheap, because we know they are really blooming expensive. You know, we're not in that CRM world yet. And then we've also got Business Central coming back, because we knew that it was been a while. We wanted to make sure it came back. So again, we did a little bit of a Twitter hunt, because we said, God, where are we going to find a new speaker? And Matt has absolutely volunteered, and he's pretty much going to go and break the Business Central Power Platform connector for it, because we don't like trying to do sales pitches to you guys. We like telling you how the world really works. So that's what we're doing. And then just to end it, the new release notes are going to be coming out. So we're going to have a chat about them, scour through, see if there's anything worth noting, see if Microsoft are going to do, you know, where are they investing for that next year period. So should be good. hopefully you're going to join us, or if not, let everyone else know, come and see the recording afterwards. But more than that, thank you to our amazing speakers today. That's gone down really well. And if you do still have any questions, feel free to ask in the chat, or we will see you soon, or just come off mute. You know, come off mute. You're all empowered. Come say hello.
The links in the chat for feedback, for Twitter pages, for the next sessions, for suggestions for more sessions for speaker, volunteers, all in the chat. But yeah.
Thank you so much. Huge thank you, Justin and Rakesh. This has been fantastic today. It's been a lot of information, but I've really actually enjoyed it. It's been absolutely wonderful. I'm so pleased you guys were able to make it.
Yeah, thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kayla and Paul, as well, for all the hard work that they do behind the scenes.
No, we're in it. Community, sorting it all out. So there you go. No, Ian, I don't. Sneaky thing that we're refusing to say. Has anyone heard of Project Como? The biggest problem with Data Lake and the Data Lake export is it breaks all of the financial reportings on the dashboards. Project Como, which I am not allowed to, has officially been released to partners, and by October they're going to have, in theory, the functionality of reports that work on Data Lake. But hey, why not? So, you know, maybe I don't know. That mildly excites me a bit. I'm such a nerd.
That's why we love you.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, pretty much. That's why they invite me, really. That's it. Look, but a beer and wish it was Friday. Italian island. There you go.
I'm going to turn off recording now. So thanks, everyone.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
That's really good.
Yes.